Republic of Panama for at least two things. One, the Panama Canal, which we're dealing with right now. And secondly, it is the date of the founding of the city of Panama back in 1519. Now, you would, Monica, you're on your way to Panama somewhere. Sheila, okay. She's going to be seeing a lot of these cathedrals, and Haiti's got its share. We've got ours. Colombia's got some. These are all over Latin America. Those were also built by hands of African people. And that day is also a day of celebration in Panama. Y'all know the story about Henry Morgan and all he did and all that stuff around there. But it is also the founding of the first city on the Pacific coast in history, as we understand it to be, okay? Now, I'm going to bring our spontaneous comments from, we have some people here that have been thinking deeply about a lot of things that have been saying. Dr. Regis is here, Dr. Brown, we have Dr. Brother Katapani and Professor Robinson. What struck you from any part of the film you saw that we could lead in with a comment from you? Anyone.
One question I continuously ask myself as I saw this and as I've been doing a lot of research in this area: why did they so willingly leave Barbados and leave Jamaica? Why? And I did some of the things that I found out is that after independence in Barbados, before independence there had been a great slave revolt called the Easter Sunday Revolt, and it almost completely controlled the island. When the owners finally got control of it, they decided to make some examples of the people who participated. And when I went to Barbados, people were telling me, oh, you must go to Spice Town, and so on. But when I look at the literature, one of the things they mention is that 11 slaves were beheaded and their bodies were dragged through Spice Town as punishment for the revolt. One of the reasons why so many Barbadians, I found out, were willing to leave Barbados is that after independence, there was something called apprenticeship, which required every slave to work for another 12 years for the master. And they were, if they could find a job after they were released, they were paid 9 to 11 pences a day. When the Americans came along and offered them 10 cents an hour, 10 hours a day, that was $1 a day. That was big money. In Jamaica, there had been the Morant slave uprising, and Britain took back over the island. And as the sugarcane situation became difficult, they decided to repossess the land. And umpteen blacks and colors who had land didn't have title, but they had receipt that they had bought the land. They ignored the receipts and they took the land away from them. These were many of the people who were willing, when the time came and the Americans came along and offered them either 8 cents or 10 cents an hour. That was guaranteed money. It wasn't agricultural, this was industrial. And they were really willing and longing to be able to go out there and get 8 cents a day and 8 cents an hour, 10 hours a day, guaranteed money. Every week or every 2 weeks, you got a guaranteed paycheck. Versus waiting for the crop to come in and then see if you can sell your crop and see how much you get for your crop to decide how much money you make.
Something was happening, and I thank Brother Robinson on that. I just want to interject here a little bit. I'm suspicious. We are still eating sugar. We're eating more sugar than we were back then too. And so I don't always hear history and just kind of take it in that kind of way. My question is anybody have any insight to what could have happened to the sugar industry that would cause this kind of movement? Dr. Brown?
What happened was that during the early 1900s, the technology of making sugar had changed. And Barbados was still stuck in the old ways of making sugar. So that the Americans had gone to Cuba and some of the other islands and brought in technology, but Barbados was still left using the old technology. Part of that had to do with the fact that during the 1700s, early 1700s, Barbados was the most prized British colony because sugar at that time was like gold. They used to produce more sugar than anyone else. As a matter of fact, and this may surprise some of the Jamaicans, Barbadians introduced the sugar into Jamaica because they ran out of space in Barbados. They also moved to the Carolinas. The first 5 governors of the Carolinas were of the plantocracy from Barbados because they were looking to move out and get more space for sugar. Barbados is only 166 square miles. That's it. So because of the demand for sugar, because of the wealth of Barbados, and the plantation owners were wealthy enough to move out and start it.
So is it okay for me to kind of just think then the need to expand the market created the movement?
Yeah, but it created what happened was because of the lack of modernization, the labor force, they had more than they needed because nobody was, at that point they were moving out.
Oh, okay.
And what had happened was also that, as Mr. Robinson was saying, they was basically, they were impoverished. And around 1912 to 1914 there was a drought, but because of the Barbadians going to Panama, they actually survived that period of time because, as he said earlier, there was really no work for the Barbadian labor. So the opportunity at 10 cents an hour was like 49 is gold.
Yes. Okay. Brother Regis, you are pensive. I can almost hear you. I know you're coming with that. The migration started, right? Looking for land, looking for where to expand this market. How does that impact you historically? Tell us how you brought that into your being. Then I'll come back to Jamaica because that's the island in the sun.
Well, actually, 2 streams in what I have been interested in came to mind as I did the reading I did in preparation for today.
Okay.
Both of these streams, I think, are things that people in the islands the workers came from perhaps should pay attention to.
Okay.
One of them is this. For decades in what we call the quote post-independence period, we have been trying to create what we call a Caribbean community. There are many parts of that community, for example, the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, and there's the CARICOM that's becoming larger and larger.
Correct.
We have Caribbean people going to many parts of the world, some of them to the United States, some to Britain, some other parts of Europe, and they have been sending back to the islands. One question that came to my mind is as follows. If you indeed had people from Jamaica, from Barbados, and from some of the research I've done from some of the French islands, Guadeloupe and Martinique, from Trinidad, from my own St. Lucia, in Panama, you have people from different islands, therefore, coming together to form community. Are there any lessons from that coming together that can inform our own coming together to form community 1,500 miles to the east among the islands themselves? That is one question that has stayed in my mind for a while as I have looked at the story of the workers in the zone.
Anyway, reaction
Okay.
from the group?
Let me say something here.
Yes,
right
please come up, Mr. Chris Brown. Come.
That migration
Yes.
from the Caribbean to the Republic of Panama,
Uh-huh.
it was not all that successful.
Okay.
In the Republic of Panama, everybody remained segregated.
Correct.
Jamaicans had their lodges,
Yes.
Barbadians had their associations, and everybody had their own thing. One problem that they had, that was a major problem, language. The St. Lucians, they spoke a lot of French. Then you had the Spanish. Then you had the English. And the mass confusion. And the problems, but it worked. But they never, ever developed unity.
So they didn't have that community that Dr. Reese.
That he's talking about. I don't think so. Now, Dr. Leonard, there's a question I need to ask you.
Please. Go ahead.
During the construction, or after the construction, while you mentioned earlier about that pension, what was the back punch that they used to give the Canal Zone workers in Douglas Hospital?
Well, we're not holding you responsible.
We have to know about it. We have to know about it. Yeah.
You really couldn't hold me responsible because I was too young. But the back punch is a test that they do to determine if syphilis has spread to the nervous system. But since many of them were retiring, and there were many of the West Indians were retiring,
All the way up.
many of the West Indians were retiring. They were giving them this back punch, which is a spinal tap, that they do to determine if you have syphilis. But that program was just to give many of the interns and residents practice. And they practiced in such a way that some of them were sticking the artery instead of the spine. And the men would die. And because of that, the men felt that the purpose of the back punch was to get rid of them. Now, when we took over the program, they were afraid that we were coming to do the balance, get rid of them too. So we had to establish a lot of mobile clinics in the churches. In Chilibwe, we went to the police department, and the first clinic that we did was the SAMAP, where the SAMAP museum is right now. That was the very first clinic we established in Wachapai, in order to get the men together. And then we used the churches to announce that the purpose of the program was so and so and so. So that by that way, we were able to give them more trust in what we were doing.
So there was some kind of reasoning around the paranoia. We weren't just paranoid for paranoid's sake.
One of the last things that I heard throughout that process, they have said they used to bribe them somewhat. If you don't take this back punch, you are not going to get your pension. That was one of the last things that I've heard throughout the years that I've been listening to a lot of the old timers, because I pretty much grew up with them.
Well, you know, the word spread in a very wrong way most of the time. The word spread in a very wrong way most of the time. And since when they give them the back punch, many of them would die. So they became afraid. And so they denied that, and they had a little less trust in the American policy. So we had to rebuild that trust in order to get them to.
Sure.
Thank you.
Great, that was a good question, it really was. And it doesn't deny the fact that there were some misgivings going on, but it really wasn't an intention to annihilate or wipe out these guys with a back punch procedure.
Another observation I want to make is that at the time before they got retired, most of them when they were working, The Jamaican Reform, the Jamaican Providence Society, the Barbadian Society, and the French Society, all encourage